Is this not... Okay. Okay, everybody, we are live. Good morning. Our usual intro is not happening, so you know what? I'm going to put it on anyways because we want to do it proper. Here we go. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Dr. Vibe here on the Morning Vibe, April 4th.
Hold on. The image is still up.
Uh-oh.
We're not seeing your beautiful face.
Oh, you call it beautiful? Okay.
Well, I guess we are seeing a version of it.
Okay.
There we go.
How about now?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry for the glitches. There's something going on in the back end, but you can see me clearly now. The rain is, well, there wasn't any rain. It was more like snow this weekend, but it's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of Epic Conversations. I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. And also, I host the only online conversation in the world for dads and fathers. That is sponsored by Dove Men Care, also sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization. And as always, I'd like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. And welcome the real star,
Ryan
Knight.
In process. We're working on that, right?
How's
my exams?
Okay.
But for those that don't know me yet, my name is Ryan Knight, one of the co-founders of the Afro-Caribbean Business Network. We work with entrepreneurs of African and Caribbean heritage, really to figure out what stage of business they're in and then help them create a blueprint to grow their companies exponentially. I'm an entrepreneur myself. I run a company called Detailing Nights. We do mobile waterless car cleaning. So we go to people's houses or their offices, clean their cars on the spot without using water, and our plant-based eco-friendly cleaning supplies. Also one of the expert service providers at Empowered for X.
So there you go.
Chris Beth Cowie, the founder of Empowered for X. We're actually in the building today. So if you need co-working space or even just a professional business address, check out Empowered for X.
You know what we have to do one day? We have to do a broadcast from there.
Absolutely.
Yes. I have to get my passport though, but I gotta
get you past Young Street.
I think that'd be really cool to do a broadcast from Empowered for X. Before we go any further, folks, got a surprise for you.
Okay.
All right. So we're gonna stop something here. This episode of the Morning Vibe is sponsored by the Macmillan Group.
Nice. Yes.
So just to share everybody here, the Macmillan Group. And we're going to put the little thing up here for everybody. There we go. So if you haven't heard about the Macmillan Group, this is what they provide mortgage solutions, one client at a time since 1999, buying, refinancing, or investing. Call them at 905-813-4354 or visit themacmillangroupinc.com.
Awesome. Shout out to Ray McMillan and Stefan.
Yeah, so I want to say thank you for your support, Ray and Stefan and family. And they're going to be our sponsor for our Monday shows over the next 3 months.
Hey, excellent.
So there's your contact information. So especially these days with housing being a main concern for a number of Black Canadians, And just to know, the Macmillan Group actually does mortgages in Canada, the United States, and the Caribbean. They are licensed to do it in those 3 geographic areas.
Love
So
it.
thank you for your support, the Macmillan Group. And thank you. And actually, we'll have some more surprises coming up in the next few weeks. But I didn't even tell Ryan about that. He didn't even know about that.
Hey, I love that kind of surprise. I love
So thank you, Macmillan Group, for your support. Mr. Ryan Knight, what's been going on lately? How was the weekend?
Yeah, the weekend was nice. Even though it was snowing, we still got some training in. So a couple of our new recruits, shout out to Khalil Chong, who it's so interesting because he's actually the nephew of one of my best friends that we went to high school together. And I remember when we were in high school, he was born,
Yeah.
and talking about Khalil and then meeting him now when he's an adult and not making the connection until it was just interesting. Yeah, a person that you knew as a child is now like a coworker.
Yes.
It was pretty surreal. So shout out to Stephanie Chong, who is one of my best friends in high school. And yeah, I feel like we got disconnected, but we gotta reconnect soon.
Well, it's really interesting when you run into direct or interact with the people you went to like public school and high school with. Was it 2 Saturdays ago? I was walking in a grocery lot, parking lot at a grocery store. And no, I wasn't loitering in the grocery store parking lot, by the way. And I ran into a guy who used to go to public school with. Public school. Yeah, public school.
Yeah.
And we hadn't seen each other for a good 30 years.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Good 30 years. And actually someone on Instagram reached out to me from university days the other day, would like to chat with me. And long story short, earlier during the pandemic, I guess after the first few waves of the pandemic, I got invited out to a rugby and football reunion. Got from guys from my high school. And I said, it was on a Sunday afternoon. I'll go for like an hour. Spent 3.5 hours there. Right. And we actually got together in our high school parking lot.
Oh, okay. It was at the high school you went there after.
Yeah, at the high school. Everyone came in and no one, we stood around and talked. We didn't sit down for 3.5 hours.
Man, that's it. The good vibes just flowing.
Yeah. And then now it's gone into where there's going to be a golf tournament and dinner later on this year. So just bringing everyone together, because you don't want to be saying, oh, I wish I would have contacted that person, or I wish you did that. So it's really, especially in the world of digital these days, it's easier to touch base with people and just find out how they're doing. And a lot of times it brings joy to their life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
so glad you're able to connect.
Yeah. Well, you got to put out the effort. That's the key thing.
And really enjoyed your conversation yesterday. Talking with
Kelvin, Black Sun Comics.
Yes.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your support and questions there. And again, if you're especially a Black Canadian and you are into comics, watch the replay of yesterday's conversation on the Black Canada Talking. We all had a conversation with Kelvin, who's been doing comics for a long time. And we got the ins and outs and the processes.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. Him breaking down the process was like, eye-opening.
That's very, very true. Want to shout out my man from Wisconsin.
Oh, sweet.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Joshua Liston. Really cool guy. He is a daddy doula.
Okay. Probably so during pregnancy taking care of the father?
Post. And we should actually get him on.
But I'd to learn more about that.
Yeah. And he's one of the few people I would say in North America that's a daddy doula.
Yeah. First one I've heard of.
There you go. So we have to get him on. So Josh, you and your family, thank you so much for your continuous support. And I'm here to support you also. Well, what's going on this morning? We have a totally new friend to me this morning. You seem to know everybody. So who is the young man we're going to be having on today?
Well, the gentleman that I've met, and Sean, you have to remind me where we did meet, because Dr. Vi was asking me, and being able to just chat with this gentleman, and it's inspiring to be able to bring onto this show people with various different genius. And I feel like this is another genius in our community that really is flying under the radar. And I was so happy he agreed to come onto the platform. I know he likes to be behind the scenes, but the stuff that he's working on in the pharmaceutical realm and also with agriculture is really interesting. And I think that more of us should know about it. So pleasure to have Sean Thompson from Psigryph on us today. You can let me know if I pronounced, Psigryph. Oh, wait, I think you're on mute.
You're on mute. We can't hear you.
Is he on mute?
No, still can't hear you.
Oh, that's weird. It was just on.
What's your way? You were good a few moments ago.
I don't think he's on mute.
Try to refresh. Try a refresh. Come back and try a refresh. Okay, so we'll have Sean just back in a moment. Cool. But yeah, so yeah, and this is the thing. We don't hear a lot about Blacks in pharma.
Right.
So this is really good, especially Black men in pharma, especially Black Canadian men in pharma. So that is going to be really interesting because it's, again, not a sector that I see a lot of us there, especially, and his background is ridiculous. Like I said, my goodness, like he's worked at some serious companies. Like, I mean, I see Tamiflu is a Canadian clinical team, GlaxoSmithKline. If you don't know that organization, you need to know. They're very big in the pharma field.
Pill bottles,
with Roche, another big company. Yeah. Just ridiculous in that area. So let's see. Try it again.
I think I'm good now.
Can we hear?
All right.
Yeah, we're good. All right. Refresh is the key. Refresh is the key. Good morning, Sean.
Dr.
How are you?
You are a new friend to me as well. So pleasure to meet you.
Right. Well, and everyone's Ryan's friend, right?
Yeah, Ryan. And you asked where we met, and I honestly am not 100% sure. I know that I have been networking online, and I, joined up with the ACBN, so it was probably through there that we talked, but I honestly don't remember the first time.
Okay.
Hey, and again, glad that we were able to connect. And I think we did have one of those initial maybe like discovery calls after you signed up, and that 15-minute call was like an hour because I was just enthralled with the space and the industry that you're in. And like Dr. Vibe was saying, there's not a lot, I would say, from the Black community in pharmaceuticals and at the high level that you're at. So I was curious, could you tell us a little bit about how you got into that space?
Sure. So, it was interesting. So I studied science at the University of Waterloo, and my plan after graduation was to go into medical school. So both of my parents were profs. My dad was a psychology prof. My mom was a nursing prof. They both emigrated here from Barbados to study at the University of Saskatchewan. Nice. So I was born out there. And anyways, my family moved to Toronto when I was in grade 3. So I was interested in helping people. So I was going to I was good at math and science. So I was going to be a psychiatrist or a neurologist. And after my undergrad, I went to work in a psych hospital, which is now known as CAMH in Toronto. And I got kind of turned off. I thought, the treatments aren't good enough. So I want to go into research and make some better treatments. And through that, I discovered the pharmaceutical industry. My parents were telling me to just get a, good government job with a, pension and all that. And I saw this path in pharma, and so I went for it. It took me 1.5 years to get in. I got in at what was then called SmithKline Beecham. It's now GlaxoSmithKline.
Gotcha.
And I was really thrilled when I joined that company, because at the time, the company was, Canadian office reported into the US or the UK, depending on what project you're on. But in the US, there were 4 different areas of medicine where the company was developing medicines. And one of the heads of that group was a Black man, a doctor, did his MD at Harvard, did a PhD at Johns Hopkins, and the head of U.S. regulatory affairs at that time was a Black woman. So all of a sudden, these barriers that I thought might be there were gone.
Okay.
So I started off my career there. It was just a great company, great experience. Then I went to Roche, and I think I got bitten probably when I was at SmithKline with the entrepreneur bug. But so I knew the science side, I didn't know the business side. I had to figure that out. And so I was team leader at Roche, and again, great experience. And then I got recruited into a biotech company here in Mississauga. I had just done a venture round. I had moved from clinical research to marketing, and I was planning to build my career at Roche and on the business side. But this was just an amazing opportunity to learn, and so I went for it. I was at that company for 10 years. The first 4 years, I was running clinical research, running the trials globally. And then the last 6 years, I moved over to business development, did licensing deals. We went public. We raised a lot of money in the capital markets, bought some companies, and then eventually our company was bought by Gilead Sciences.
Okay.
And so then I said, okay, I've got everything I need. I'm going to go find me some science to turn into a company. And that's what I've done. And it hasn't been easy. I make it sound easy, but it has not been.
When did you know it was time to be on your own?
Yeah. Honestly, when I got passed over for a CEO job that I thought I should get, and I was like, okay, that. I had a lot of people telling me that was always the goal of mine, and I had a lot of people telling me, you're going to be the next CEO inside and outside of the company, but that didn't work out, and that's the way it goes sometimes. So that's when I knew that I'm going to do it myself now.
So from the time you made that decision till the time it became reality, what was the gap in time?
Well, okay. That's not as simple a story as
that's why you're here.
So it was a 2-year gap, but this company, Psigryph, is the 4th company that I've created. So
wow,
the first 3, I ran into some barriers that I did not think would be there. And even with this one, I ran into some barriers. But I think each of these experiences teaches you something. Each time you fail, you figure out, what is it that didn't go my way? Is there something I could have changed? And you learn. So this time, I knew I had to set things up correctly from the beginning to make it happen. And I did. And so it's working out. I'm not at the top of the mountain yet where I want to be, but it's going there.
Well, you're not where you used to be, right?
And I'm not where I used to be either.
Absolutely.
So I've made some progress.
Good stuff.
Well, I'm curious about your journey with Psigryph now. And if you want to go a bit deeper into exactly what does Psigryph do, and then I wanted to ask you more about your entrepreneurial journey. But yeah, let the people know, what are you working on?
Yeah. So as we discussed, I my background is in pharma, developing medicines for humans. And so those 6 years that I was at running business development for YM BioSciences, a couple of those years included the financial crisis. And so we saw just we were one of the few oncology companies that had money. They couldn't be financed once the financial crisis hit. And so we saw a lot of different technologies. And I mention that because I was introduced to this technology in 2017 by a lawyer that I know in Kitchener that I've worked with on a few projects. Great man, Tom Hunter at Gowlings. And so when I saw this technology, I knew it was good. Like it was instant. As soon as I saw it, I said, I need to meet the inventor because the next question is, can I work with him? And instantaneous chemistry. So what does the company do? my inventor, Dr. Gopi Palya, is a professor of plant agriculture at the University of Guelph. And he has developed a nanomaterial from sour cherries. So he takes these sour cherries, and his whole career in research has been about using food to promote health in humans. So that's where we intersect. We're both, interested in promoting health. So he creates these tiny little nanomaterials, and then you can attach things to them. It's like UPS for living cells. It's a delivery system to get something inside of a living cell. Right?
Wow.
And I've seen there's many other nanotechnologies out there, and they all have strengths and weaknesses. This is the first one that I saw that was, biodegradable, no toxicity, can carry all different kinds of things. So nutrients in food, obviously pharmaceuticals is what I saw immediately. We can carry things such as RNA, like in the COVID-19 vaccines. So it has this platform that can do a lot of different things. And as we went out there and talked to people, I presented at a conference 3 years ago, and we started getting approached by agriculture companies. And I honestly had never thought about using this technology in agriculture. And I have to say, I'm a little bit ashamed. My grandfather in Barbados was a farmer. I mean, he had cows, pigs, chickens, but agriculture just never even crossed my mind. But, agriculture has the same problems of drug delivery that we have with human pharmaceuticals, right? But we call them pesticides, or we call them fertilizer, or, we call them an insecticide. So, or we call them, or it's nutrition in an animal, similar problem. So I've learned, at this late stage, I've learned that, cows, for example, we raise cows for beef, right? And cows and all other animals that we raise are fed supplements in their diet to make them grow more protein, right? So the problem is, one of those things that we give to cows is nitrogen, and it's not absorbed well by the animal. So they excrete it in their urine and feces. It pollutes the soil, and then it creates greenhouse gas ultimately. So a lot of the human greenhouse gas emissions come from farming. About 15% come from agriculture. So by attaching the nitrogen, we're working on this in the lab right now. We're going to prove this out this year. But by attaching the nitrogen to our nanomaterial and then feeding the animal that, it gets absorbed much better. You don't get the excretion and the waste, and you solve that greenhouse gas problem.
Wow.
What?
Wow. So we got a comment already. Oh, our sponsor, Good Morning STEM, is the future for the Black folks globally. My grandfather was one of the first Black pharmacists in Guyana. Tried to get me to follow in his footsteps, but it didn't work.
Well, people got to be who they are, I've tried to get my kids to follow in my footsteps as well, and to some extent they have, but they're doing their thing.
Let me ask you, and thank you for breaking it down for us non-bioheads to understand, how much attention now is your idea getting compared to 10 years ago?
Oh, well, a lot more attention. So, first of all, greenhouse gas, climate change. There are still fewer deniers out there, but I think most of us who've grown up in Canada, we've seen the weather change dramatically since our childhood. There's just no question the winters aren't what they used to be and summers are hotter. So people are understanding it, that it's a problem, and people want to solve the problem. And the other thing that happened, was COVID. I have been hearing about mRNA for probably 20 years.
Wow.
We have known that you could use genetics to solve problems, but we never had the delivery tools, right? Because the mRNA itself is really unstable outside of a cell. It does its work inside of a cell, but just degrades very quickly outside of a cell. So people didn't know that these lipid nanoparticles that are being used to deliver the COVID vaccines from Moderna and Pfizer would work. But the crisis came, and hallelujah, it worked. And so now people are much more interested in using genetics to solve these big problems because we believe that we've got the delivery tools. Now, I will mention that, those lipid nanoparticles, I think it's interesting. All of us know now that those lipids have to be kept very cold, right? We heard about the freezers, these minus 80 freezers, and how you're going to get them to remote locations. So, or hot climates. So delivery systems are still needed to solve other problems. And ours, thankfully, is stable at room temperature and stable in a refrigerator for years. So there are things that we can do, like spraying RNA onto a farmer's crop to kill a very specific insect, but not kill anything else. We're working on that as well.
Okay. And
Ryan, go ahead.
Around like COVID, but I want to touch on it real quick because with your lab and with what you're working on, were you part of those discussions to create solutions to COVID, or was that something that wasn't in your scope?
It wasn't in our scope. So we had the idea. We did, when COVID hit, we had the idea that we could do it, and we applied for grants to be part of that solution, but we were not successful in achieving our grants. And when the granting agencies look at companies, I mean, we had started in 2018. That happened early 2020. We were 3 people. They're not going to give us the money. They're going to give it to a company that they believe has the infrastructure to do it. I think if it were to happen today, it would be a different story. But then no, unfortunately.
And we touched on I think Ray was talking about his grandfather was in pharmacy and didn't really follow his footsteps. My son, he's 6, Christian, and he said that he wants to be a scientist. So I'm curious what you would say to my son as some guidance or advice to follow that path. Like, what should he be expecting?
He can expect a very interesting and exciting career. I would say study your math. Math is everywhere. Everywhere in science. It's just an inherent part of the process. Yes. And just get involved. Like if there are contests at school, just try, because most scientific research fails, right? I mean, that's in the pharmaceutical industry, for example. I think it's down to 90% failure, which is a big improvement. When I was in pharma in the late 90s, was 97% of the projects we started never made it to market.
Yes.
So you got to try and learn and, fail and then try something different. And
well, like I tell people, you're not failing, you're experimenting.
Right.
That's right.
You're experimenting.
It's called research for a reason, right?
Yes.
That if it was easy, it would just be called search. Right?
Good breakdown. I like that one. Marlon's saying this is definitely an area where the funder has to have, especially in-house, to even offer assistance. Do the big agri-tech companies like Monsanto have venture funds or R&D? Are you aware?
Yes, they do. And that's an interesting question, because that's one of the first things that happened in the 90s to me to sort of get me interested in being an entrepreneur, because SmithKline Beecham started the first venture fund by a pharma company called SR1, and it still exists today in Philadelphia. And all the big pharma companies, all of the big ag companies have venture arms, absolutely. And those are people we're talking to, and those are people that we take guidance from. So, because ultimately they're our customer, right? Psigryph is very unlikely to be the marketer of a biopesticide or an animal nutrition product worldwide. And we can maybe do it in Canada, but we're going to need partners. So we talk to those companies, find out frankly, that's why we're in agriculture, because those companies came to us and said, okay, that work you did in cancer, that was interesting, but that's not our field. Could your technology be applied here? And we thought about it and said yes. So yes, they do, and it's hard to get money out of them,
Right.
but
Uh,
it's possible.
Okay,
Yes.
I just want to stick on that point.
Mhm.
Why is it hard? Why do you feel it's hard to get money from them, even if you have a viable product and service that would benefit both of you and the community?
Yeah, well, because you got to think about it from their perspective.
Okay.
So first of all, every university on planet Earth with a faculty of science or a faculty of engineering has innovations coming out of it.
Sure.
And they're all going after the same 50 companies. So first of all, there are thousands of competing technologies
Sure.
for their attention. And so one, you got to get their attention that you've solved a problem. And then the other that's relevant to them. So that's, part of academic research is just researching and not necessarily solving a specific problem. You want to understand things fundamentally. And so once you've got to the point of solving a problem, then the next question they ask you is, can you make enough of it for it to be relevant to me?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Right.
And that's a problem.
Yeah.
That is the manufacturing is a big problem.
Okay. Got Marlon Singh here. The 90% failure rate is a big part of it. Venture capital doesn't make those large bets.
Well,
Tim, go ahead.
so I would say, and I see the next question there. So venture capital, again, it's a small pool of people when it comes right down to it that everybody is going after. So that's one form of capital. And we can probably talk a bit more about venture capital. I think we should with this audience, but they expect a 90% failure rate, or maybe not 90, but probably 70% failure rate. So venture capitalists will typically tell you, we make 10 investments. We see 100 a year. We make 10 investments. We expect 7 of them to fail, 2 of them to break even, and 1 of them to go to the moon and make up for all the other losses. Okay. So again, to a VC, you've got to be able to show that you're on that trajectory, that you can be that 1 out of 10 that's going to be 100x for them.
Question from Tim. Has there been any research on nano delivery of medicine to psych patients like at CAMH?
Yes, so nano delivery of medicines is being used in every field of medicine. So the answer to that is yes. I'm a little bit far from the psychiatric drug world now. That's where I started my career. But I know that there are issues with getting drugs into the brain. It's called the blood-brain barrier. There's this protection around the brain, biological protection to prevent things from getting in there that can harm the brain. And so that also means it's difficult to get a drug across that barrier. And nanotechnology is being used to try to solve that problem.
Well, I'm curious with like nanotechnology, it sounds futuristic. It's actually here today. Is there anything that like wakes you up in the middle of the night where you're like, whoa, this application with what I'm working on would be a game changer? Are there any like industries that come to mind that you're like, I would love to go into that next after agriculture?
So we are actively in the food. We're soon to launch a dietary supplement in the United States. Gotcha. And then we're going to looking at other markets after that. But for regulatory reasons and for market reasons, we're going to the US first. So making food more nutritious. So look, I think that's one of the things that I have learned in my scientific journey, and using medicines to solve diseases. Actually, the food we eat or don't eat is a much bigger contributor to human health and disease than pharma.
Right.
And so making food, so one of the things that we've been doing over the last 150 years is increasing the food supply, making more of it. And that has largely been done at the expense of nutrition. So we're making more, but it's less nutritious than it used to be. So
Okay.
that needs to change, because that is
Yes.
going to really have a massive impact on human health. Agriculture, huge problem. Pesticides, fertilizers, all these things are good and bad, right? We need pesticides because you don't want insects or rodents or whatever to eat all the food we're trying to grow, but at the same time we don't want to pollute the environment. And then absolutely pharma. I think that you mentioned COVID. I think infectious diseases and cancer are things that our technology could really help. I lost my mother to metastatic breast cancer 20 years ago. And
Our condolences.
Thank you. But that really triggered me, inspired me to try to solve problems in cancer. So yeah, I'm excited about a lot of things that our technology can do.
Good. Question here from Charmaine. What would you do differently in facing the challenges you encountered in your journey?
Yeah, it's it's hard to say that I could have done anything differently. But when I'm talking to younger people now, I would say, don't be naive. So I think I was naive. I think that I didn't think barriers would be there that were. So for example, we touched on venture capital. Now we don't keep a lot. So first of all, when I went into biotech, so big pharma, totally different story. International companies, every continent on earth, diverse leadership and people. But when you go into biotech, the smaller companies, now you're into the venture capital world, and there are not a lot of Black people. And so when I was going to conferences, there were conferences in Quebec and Toronto and Vancouver. There were 2 Black men in those conferences, myself and a guy named Owen Gordon. And if people met Owen first, they would call me Owen. If they met me first, they would call Owen Sean. That was it.
Jeez.
And I went to probably those 10 years with funders, with VCs or analysts on, and I remember 2 Black people in those 10 years. So
wow,
10 years.
And one in Toronto and one in New York. And the guy in New York was Canadian too. And he's done very well, actually. He's done very well. But so one of the problems, and we don't have a lot of statistics here in Canada.
Right.
But the US is much, and I can just tell you from life experience, the numbers would be worse in Canada than in the US. So in the US, Blacks are 14% of the population. They get about 3% of venture funding, and Black women in particular, I think, are below 1%. Wow. So it is extremely difficult to raise money from that constituency. We need more Black people, and more MBAs, more business grads going into that field. So I would say the people. So when I looked at opportunities, first of all, I got to be in love with the science. So whatever your field is, you got to really believe in that opportunity.
Absolutely.
Secondly, the person that you're working with, you got to have absolute trust and faith in the person, and you need someone else to talk to. You can't do it yourself. So, I'm more of a scientist businessman, but my co-founder is a pure scientist, excellent scientist. And thirdly, you need a great institution. So because my technology is coming from a university, I've got to be able to work with the university. They've got to have the right policies that facilitate. So, but it comes down to the people. Like, make sure you've got the right people that you have a trusting relationship with, because it's not easy.
Yeah. Marlon is saying here, excellent advice. You have to be obsessed with the problem. Harris Market is saying, great conversation. Are you leveraging the Black North Initiative or the Black Opportunity Fund?
Yes, I'm involved with both. So we signed on to the Black North Initiative right from the outset, and I've been participating in monthly meetings. The Black North Initiative is about diversity, diversifying teams, right? Diversifying hiring. So in a way, and you sign targets, right? So blacks are 3% of the Canadian population.
Mhm.
So the fact that I'm on the board of my company and we have 3 board members, we're already at 33%. All right. So we far exceed the
Yeah.
Black North Initiative
Mhm.
objectives, but we still need to be there. We still need to talk to other people, and some other companies aren't at their targets. It's a problem for bigger companies. Um,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and the Black Opportunity Fund, yes, I've participated. I've listened to Dennis's story. I've listened to Wes's story. Very similar in a lot of ways to mine, but they found a way to be successful. And I think we need to talk to each other. We need to share stories and support each other however we can. So Black Opportunity Fund right now is not investing in companies like mine, but I'm encouraging them
Hmm.
to, and I'm hoping one
Yeah.
day they'll get there.
Hmm.
Well, and I know they had that education and health fund, but I guess that was for nonprofits. I don't know if I
Yeah,
maybe got that wrong. Yeah.
yeah.
And so I'm curious from your perspective, there's been a lot of federal funding flowing to Black organizations, and I would say a lot of banks creating Black entrepreneurship programs.
Yeah.
Has any fit like what you're looking for? And if not, what would need to be changed based on like where you are in your business and what types of supports that you need?
Mm. Yeah, that's a big question, and some of it goes far beyond um, being black. That's an added hurdle, but Canadian culture
Mm.
is actually a huge hurdle that I've been working on for 15 years. We're not a risk-taking people,
Yeah. Exactly.
and
Okay.
we are, a nation that was that has been built on trading, right? It was built by the Hudson's Bay Company, selling beaver pelts and
Yeah.
so mining and forestry, these things are well understood in our society. Our banking system was built on it.
Mm.
So when a scientist, so we talked about the 90% failure rate. So just imagine I approach a banker at TD Capital Markets and I say, "Hey, I've got this science that has about a 90% chance of failing, but I would like you to invest your money in." And then the next guy walks in and says, "Well, I've got this mine up north of Sudbury that has nickel or something, and we can look
Yeah.
at what the price of nickel has been for the last 100 years and what the."
Mm.
So so you're competing against that whole mindset of
Yeah.
safe investment versus unsafe, risky investment. And the reality is Americans are just more willing to put money in. Now, that
Yeah.
said, there are grants available, but the granting agencies, everything changed for me once I got my friends, my boys from the University of Waterloo to put money into my company.
Right.
And once they did that, then the grants started pouring in.
Oh,
So there are
okay.
many grants that are available.
And
Fantastic.
that's interesting because a lot of Black entrepreneurs miss that friends and family round.
Yes.
And like you said, that's what it took to get that momentum going. So if we're missing that round, a lot of us are sitting on great ideas that might be risky, but never get the right opportunity to at least, get the wheel moving. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm glad you were
Yeah.
able to get that started.
Yeah. Let's face the reality. Black people have a harder time getting to the top. They have a much harder time, whatever your industry is, getting those positions where you'll make that money that you can then invest is much, much
Gotcha.
harder. So, yeah, my black friends, who I love dearly, don't have as much money as my white friends. I mean, that is just the reality. And the other thing I will say is I took a big risk when I was young,
Mhm.
um, probably inspired by my mom because she had a real estate side gig, when she
Yeah.
was teaching. and she made some money renting out houses to students. Like my sister went to the University of Guelph and she bought a house, and my sister was able to live rent free because the other students were paying. And I saw this, so I bought a house very early in the 90s, a much bigger house than I could afford. I lived on, bought it from the plans and lived on bread and water for 11 months until closing day and just scraped by.
Yes.
But if I did not have the equity in my house, I could not have survived the 4-year journey that Psigryph required.
Gotcha.
Wow. Amazing.
I appreciate hearing that.
I appreciate how I was going to ask you, but you answered it. How would your journey be different if you were based in the United States? But you've basically answered that, saying there, or what? Maybe you haven't completely answered it.
It's interestingly, I think it probably would have been a lot easier in the United States. I think there is systemic racism in the entire Western world, right? The entire
world. Forget the Western world. Entire world.
Yeah. So those barriers are there, but I think that because there's been more open conflict in the United States, there's a group of people and there's a group of Blacks who have been more successful. It's a small number, it's not big enough, but just like the David Whedons and the Willophiles that I mentioned at the beginning, and SmithKline Beecham, there's people who've gotten through, and I think the person that I am, I had opportunities to move to the United States or move to Europe with the companies, right, which, family reasons I didn't, but I think it would have been easier. I think there's more risk capital available. There's more Black people who've gotten to top positions. So it's not as unusual as it is here.
Question here. Harris Markin says, one of the questions on Shark Tank is, how do I get my money back? How's that working for your investors?
Yeah, that's a great question. And Shark Tank is a great show, but it does not apply to the scientific world. When you have, so the sharks are looking for, and they're very similar mindset to venture capitalists. They're looking for a business with revenue that is exploding, so that I can put in a bit of money and I can grow this. And actually, that's what the corporate venture funds are looking for in a lot of cases. But in the science world, you've got a regulator. You have the FDA, the EPA, Health Canada, the European medicines agencies, where you have to prove that something is safe and effective before you get access to the market. So my investors understand that because my friends are scientists and doctors, and so they've worked in industries that have been highly regulated, and so the investors that I look for have to be people who understand that you got to spend a lot of money before you get to market. So they understand the opportunity, and that you need when you're in this kind of business, you got to have people who will stay with you for 5 years. Like, right, give me 5 years, right, and you'll be happy. But if they're not willing to stick with you for 5 years, don't take their money.
Great point. Great point. We got another question here, or comment. Marlon's saying you have to be extremely creative. There are new mechanisms that we can take advantage of, especially in filling the friends and family round, equity crowdfunding, but we must engage in those innovative group economics. Tim says we need more philanthropists in our community to help with the risk factor of getting great ideas off the ground. And Charmaine asks, what advice would you give in terms of making better choices in the food we eat to protect ourselves from serious health issues?
Yeah, you know what? Our moms told us what to do. Everyone's mom told you to eat your vegetables, eat the green leafy vegetables, eat meat that is low in fat, right? And eat locally. So one of the big problems for climate change is all the stuff we're shipping all over the world. Eat locally, grow some stuff in your backyard or on your balcony. That
Okay.
food, I grew some tomatoes. So my daughter studied geography at U Ottawa and graduated last year. So we made a garden in the back for her because she's, that's her thing. And we grew some tomatoes back there. And those tomatoes were much redder and tastier and flavorful than any tomato I have ever bought in this grocery store. Right? Because we're shipping tomatoes that haven't ripened completely from California or wherever, and they're just not as good. So eat locally, lean meat, and lots of vegetables and carbs. We need some carbs, but we eat too many carbs. Like, just go easy on the bread. If you're going to eat it, eat multi-grain, whole grain bread. Bake it yourself. The house smells gorgeous when you do.
Okay, Ryan, any final things before we start shutting it down?
Yeah, one thing I always want to harp on, where again, these organizations in our community are designed to support you on your journey. So based on where you are now, I'm curious, what is the vision for Psigryph, and what can the community do? And hey, if it's a capital raise that you're in the middle of, what can we do to really support you on this journey to get to that vision?
So I was in San Francisco 2 weeks ago to present to investors and big corporations, and we launched a $10 million Series A round. So say nice things about us to whoever might be interested. Follow us on LinkedIn and on Twitter, and like us. Just getting the word out. When there's nearly 8 billion people on planet Earth, I need like 50 who have got big wallets, right? So, but it's finding those 50 that's hard. So let's just talk about us, spread us through in your networks, and really support guys like Wes and Dennis, who are building these funds, and lobby the government, join groups. I mean, I think a lot of the work you're doing, Ryan, is fantastic. Yeah, so let's just support each other as much as we can.
Well, good stuff, Sean. Well, thank you for taking the time out of your global schedule to be with us today.
My pleasure.
For people, contact information, we showed it a few times. Here it is again. There's the website address. There's Twitter. They're also, on LinkedIn. We wish you the best in your journey, and thank you for everything you've done, past, present, and future. Anytime you want to come on here and share, you have a home here.
I appreciate that very much. I appreciate the invitation to share my stories.
And let me know when I can bring Christian to the lab so you can see what scientists do.
I would absolutely love to host Christian. We're doing a renovation now. As soon as that's done, I will send you a note.
One last thing. What is the next big thing you're excited about in the journey?
Well, we're doing some really cool stuff in our lab. And I think by the end of the summer, we're going to have some really interesting data on the animal nutrition. And then by next year, the biopesticide, the RNA biopesticides. So, but I'm really looking to the fall of this year that I'm hoping to consummate a deal with a big company somewhere on planet Earth. So that's driving me every day.
Well, with each one of those wins that are going to happen, we're asking you to come back here and share with us.
I would love to. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Sean. Have an outstanding day. Remember to give yourself grace and manage your time, but also manage your energy.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Take care. All right. That was a good conversation. Loved it. Loved it.
The nanobots are going to be in our food, in our bodies. Hey,
I'm glad that Sean was able to break it down, because I have no idea, but he broke it down really nice. So that is excellent. So folks, and thanks everyone who watched live, and great questions. Excellent.
Yes, much appreciated.
Tim is saying, thanks, Sean. Will be following you on Psigryph. And then Marlon saying, you have a new fan. So that is fantastic.
Love
Well,
it.
follow them and maybe get in touch with them and find out more. Everyone, not only just Marlon and Tim, find out more. Ryan, what else is up with you today and the rest of the week?
Hey, ACBN has our info sessions on Tuesdays. We have our entrepreneurship drop-in on Thursdays. So, hey, just wanted to plug in to meet more entrepreneurs like Sean, like the people that watch our show, and see how we can support them. So excited about that. And thank you to everyone that came in person to our first Friday's event last Friday. They were here in Empowered for X. It was a great conversation about branding and marketing. So yeah, slowly but surely, we are getting back to in-person events. Oh, and the next one is our pitch competition in May. So keep an eye out for that one.
Excellent. What's up for the rest of the week?
Nah, other than that, just relaxing. How about yourself?
Well, as I was telling
today's
Ryan,
a heavy day.
Yeah, well, the next 2 days, but especially today, I was sharing with Ryan before we went live. I already had a call 8 o'clock. We have this. Then in 35 minutes, I have to co-facilitate a 3-hour session. Then I have a half-hour break after that. Then I've got someone has asked me to evaluate they're launching a webinar. They want me for an hour and a half to go through it from my lens. Then hopefully I get a break. Then I got a course from 6 to 7. Then I've got to facilitate my weekly training session of coaching from 8 to 9:30. Plus I got a head cold.
Oh dear, you see it?
So it's all good.
Pushing,
you know what? I'd rather be dead than bored.
Yeah. What? Wait, hold on. Say it again. You'd rather be.
I'd rather be dead than bored.
Oh, than bored. Oh, okay. Yes.
Right. So there's stuff to do. So they got to get the job done. So again, you can catch replays here on the Dr. Vibe Show YouTube page, Facebook page, ACBN, Facebook, and YouTube, and Ryan Oneil Knight on YouTube. Again, big shout out. Sponsored our conversation today was sponsored by the Macmillan Group. There is their contact information, website, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, phone number. They have a toll-free number. So even if you're watching the United States, you can get a hold of them. And they're going to be our sponsor for the next 3 months on Monday. And if you'd like to sponsor some of our conversations, give us a holla.
100%.
All right. As always, we end off. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. Remember to give yourselves grace. And remember too, don't just manage your time, manage your energy. We'll see you on Friday. Be safe and keep the faith. Peace.